Hey everybody. What's up? What's up? So today, everyone that's tuning in, we're gonna do a Chloe and I are gonna do a mirror talk about the process. So how's everyone doing? So I'm just waiting on Chloe. It's 2 o'clock now. So I'm just waiting on Chloe. There she is.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, B.
Hey. How you doing?
How are you doing? Good, good, good.
Yeah.
Um, I'm excited to dive into our conversation today about mirror talk, the creative process.
Yes.
I think this is going to be. hmm
Yes, no, me too.
Hi, Foster students. Aw. Hi, Kelsey.
I love your braids. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my quarantine. I want to grow my hair out look, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Nice.
let's see where you want to start in a little bit.
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
ready to dive in now? I think
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
still joining us.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, definitely.
Well, let's dive in. I'm sure people are will come and join us.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Do you want to start or?
Yes. Well, I can just
Okay.
start. So,
Okay.
welcome, everyone. We have B here and Chloe here, and we are going to talk about the creative process, what that entails when it comes to working with Camille A Brown and dancers as a company. And also, there's great parallels when you're just working with Camille in general on any project, whether it is within the company or, in theater or film or television. Um, so we have a few of we're gonna like take you on this narrative journey on the creative process because I think many times they're like, oh, what do you do, in the space? Like, how do you create in the space? But B and I were talking the other day and just discussing, what is our creative process? And I think B, you introduced something so beautiful. It's basically what is your experience outside of the space? That is what is going to inform the creative process inside the space. So I guess let's dive into that. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on like, what you're experiencing outside the space and how it informs the creative process inside the space?
Yeah, no, totally. You know, uh, One of the things that we do, especially, and I'm starting with like the creative process with two of the works that Camille has done with the company, which is Black Girl Linguistic Play and Ink. And then of course Tolerance, but the two that I'm in, of course, is Black Girl Linguistic Play and Ink. And the things that I had to pretty much do is dive into just my roots, dive into who I am outside of just what dance is, like who is Beatrice as a person? What is my personality? And just digging into that just because I feel like dancers in general, we go into the space of just kind of like thinking about the technique, and the movements and what, and and all these different formulas that we are taught to do. So I had to just kind of, like Camille and all the other dancers as well as yourself, we talk about like stripping down our technique, and I had to think about like what does that really mean. And what that means is that like when all of these African American social dances, African diasporic dances started, it didn't start in the studio. It started with the people, it started with labor, it started with like what people were doing, right? And
Right.
that is creating like Black narrative. So it's like, what is your narrative outside of the studio? So I had to like go deep into you know, my Cuban roots. And I had to go deep into like really thinking about just how spiritual and how spiritualism is connected into African diasporic dances, and that has narrative. And then how does that connect to me as a child, right? So thinking about the different plays that I used to do when I was younger, um, you know, hide and seek, tic tac toe, um, you know, Marco Polo, or, you know, just different hand games in Spanish,
Mhm.
you know, so all of those different things that like just create, you know, just, and that is movement, that is dance, you know, that is revolutionary. Mm. So, and
Yeah.
I'm even
Yeah.
now like going through all of this, like I'm not even thinking about Beatrice as the dancer as in the studio. I'm thinking about Beatrice as the individual who like is creating, and we are all individually are creating history
Right.
within what we do naturally. Um, so yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. I agree with all of that. And I guess I'll just add the importance of bringing yourself. And particularly working with Camille, you know, I can't speak for other creatives and choreographers, but that is what Camille wants first and foremost before anything else. She wants you to bring in your most authentic self. And what I've found, you know, especially when I, you know, first started working with Camille, and when I also see newcomers come in, it is this struggle a bit, if you are a dancer first, right? It is this struggle a bit to be able to go inside yourself and welcome self first before you automatically want to turn on or demonstrate what you think you want the choreographer to do, or you want the choreographer wants from you. And that's just the wrong approach when it comes to working with Camille and in her creative process. Camille doesn't want you to, you know, do what she thinks you should do. She wants you to do what you think you should do. She encourages choices, encourages storytelling, but from your particular narrative and your particular narrative alone. And she's very adamant about um, making sure that that is in the forefront, and that no individual is looking alike, because we are all unique and different and have different narratives. So, you know, what you experience in life, be especially being, you know, Afro-Cuban, you know, being bilingual, you know, growing up on the East Coast, you know what I mean, versus myself, you know, being Black American, growing up in the Midwest, you know what I'm saying? It's just we have different narratives of what Blackness and what Black women look like, right? And it's up to us to come into this space and share our particular narrative. But within that, there's beauty, because there's common denominators, there's connection. And I think that's also a big part of, and I guess transitioning to another idea, you know, once you bring yourself into space, into the creative space, that is what ignites the creativity, you know, because of all of these voices coming together and connecting. I believe that's one of the most important things. And that's, I guess, where Camille is able to kind of have this creative playground to start work, to start, you know, creating. And, you know, the creative process inside the studio, you know, once we brought ourselves in, then
Yeah.
that ignites discussion, right? So I was going to say, let's talk about some of the discussions we've had, you know, when it comes to the work, whether it be Tolerance or Black Girl or Ink. So I guess I'll start with Mr. Tolerance, right? Which was her first part of her trilogy. Um, that was talking about, you know, stereotypes, right? These Black stereotypes, and how these stereotypes have been put on, you know, particularly Black performers, right? This idea of having to wear this mask, having these things to be performative, right? So, you know, the stereotype of, you know, the video vixen, or, you know, the lazy person, or, you know, the thug, or, you know, the help, or, you know, big mama, you know, these types of stereotypes that were frequently shown, you know, in media, in film. And honestly, that's all the work we had. but it was a mask because those were stereotypes that didn't show the dimensions and the complexity of the Black identity. But what Camille does so effortlessly throughout the piece is that she's able to show that these stereotypes were just that, they were a mask, and when you take off that mask, then you see the beauty and the complexity that comes with who you are as an individual, but also how it's been influenced by the outside saying that maybe this is you. So it's that tug and pull of complexity. So the discussions, of course, that came about is, especially identifying as Black, having to say, well, what are Black stereotypes? What are the Black stereotypes? Even just being a female, right? A woman. Either I'm going to be, if I decide that I want to be direct, with my conversation, or if I have just a bit of elevated tone, or if I want to come and complain or, highlight something that is insufficient, then I am the angry Black woman, right? That's a stereotype that is put on me, right? There's many, and these were some of the discussions, of course, that we're talking about. If you pride your body and want to show it off in, whatever manner, then it's not celebrated, it's actually demeaned. And now, you were this video vixen that's not highlighting, the community in the best light, right? So these are some of the conversations that we dove into, these stereotypes, and then how to dismantle them. And I think
can I ask you a question?
Did a beautiful job.
Can I ask you a question?
I'm sorry.
I was wondering, because of all of that, what can you maybe talk about your experience in terms of how if there was an experience of yours that you had to take off, put on that mask, and what was that, and then the taken off, and then how did that reveal to you that informed the work? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I will give you a scenario too. And in the entertainment industry, in musical theater, my first time holding the position as a dance captain, right? And I was also a dance captain in an all white cast. I was the only Black person. I was the only person of color represented, but yet I held this leadership position. So it's so funny because I tried so hard to be able to communicate in a way that didn't show that stereotype, right? So whenever I approached the situation, I would tell myself, be calm, be calm, be articulate, don't use slang, you know what I mean? Be direct, right? But then, of course, I was tested. And, there was a moment where maybe the stereotype angry Black woman came out, but it wasn't about an angry Black woman. It was about a woman who happened to be in leadership, who happened also to be Black, was being tested, and not being tested because, I wasn't able to hold the position, but being tested because of misogyny, being tested because of, racism, being tested because many or some thought I wasn't, ample for the position, or I didn't deserve the position. So then, when I did have to quote unquote get buck, meaning just show my real color, you know what I mean? And it wasn't about being angry. I was still very articulate. I was still very direct, but I was casual with it. And there's this emphasis that can come in your voice. And that's just what we do. Cause it's look, I'm not about to be so PC with you because you don't get it. But when I show you my real colors, then you bag back. But then now you feel offended. Absolutely not. You know what I mean? So that was a situation that, I struggle with. And even now, as I continue to want to create art and work with Camille, particularly in these creative artistic positions, as an associate to her, you're still kind of teeter-totting with that, you know what I'm saying? But one thing I do feel comforted being with another Black woman, that we can do it together. You know what I mean? We do it together. We're able to stand firm and authentic in who we are, and we do it together. And it's not about satisfying, you know,
Right.
whiteness, or it's not about satisfying male domination. You know, it's just about who we
Right.
are and demanding
You know, it's
respect for
interesting. It's
that.
kind of like what she
Yeah.
says all the time. You know, who were you before the world told you who you're supposed to be, right? Um, and you know, and listening to what you're saying, you know, I'm thinking about even as children, you know, and how we have to, or at least in my experience, you know, I had a whole lot of like just struggle trying to figure out my identity with my hair, you know, and that was like a huge thing. And because like my family is Cuban, I'm
Mm-hmm.
Hispanic, I'm Latina, and it was just more of like me trying to prove, you know, trying to prove to be some, you know, to be this, the stereotype of like, you know, what a Latina is supposed to be, you know, of like curly hair. And, you know, so we, you know, it's like all because of like
Right.
what the world was telling and was telling me, you know, how I'm supposed to like
Mm-hmm.
look in order to like be perceived a certain way. You know, and I think that like, you know, you struggle with those different things, and it starts with like childhood, and then when you get into the profession of like musical theater and like, you know, concert dance, then it comes back to you, you know, it comes back to you in those different triggers where it's just like, oh wow, this is familiar to me, this is
Mm-hmm.
something that I went through when I was like younger. um and then it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
have to, it's like when your mom says, oh, you know, like what you're saying, what you just expressed of like, you know, you have to like talk a certain way, you have, don't make sure that that you're like, that you're pulled up, make sure da 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 da, you know. And then you're holding so much, and you're basically, you know, putting on this facade, you know, in order to like please this quote unquote masses or whatnot, when you're just kind of like negating who you really are. And then at the same time you feel
Yeah.
like that's something that's right.
That's.
So you know, it's so interesting. Somebody put, it's so
Mm-hmm.
hard having to play the role of respectability. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. But I guess to even to connect it with the process, the creative process with Camille, um, there is such beauty and not just saying like, okay, come into this space and be authentically yourself because that's what I want and that's what I need to create. But also because she's welcoming your narrative, but she's welcoming even a larger narrative of Black culture, Black people, you know what I mean, and the many stories. So it's not that you have to come in and have to articulate yourself a certain way or dance a certain way, or you know, there's no boundaries put on you because this is a safe space for
Right.
you. All of you is welcomed. Your gender is welcome. Your ethnicity is welcome. Your race is welcome. Your language is welcome. Your, you know, everything is welcomed. And, you know, to truth be told, I don't know there's many environments out there that do that for
Right.
people, not just artists, right, but for people. So, you know, I feel like that's why when we are in this creative process and why the works that she creates are so brilliant is because we, as the foundations of her creativity, generating this, you know, this material, inspiring her to create and connect, you know, we give 100% because it's welcomed, it's encouraged, it's affirmed, we're uplifted, you know. So I think that's really, really important. I think that's also a major aspect to the creative process, is that she is welcoming Black people to tell their Black stories, as different or as like or alike as they are, into this framework of what theme she wants to push forward, you know. And Mr. Tolerance, it was, you know, stereotypes, the mask. In Black Girl Linguistic Play, it was, you know, the many narratives of being a childhood girl, Black girl, you know. And it's funny because we still had hand games, whether you grew up as Afro Latina
Right.
Cuban or, you
And
know,
yeah,
just a Midwestern
that's what I
Black
was gonna
girl, right? Same thing. And then in ink,
sorry.
yeah.
Well, I was gonna I was going to
Yeah. Oh
say
no,
that,
come on.
like, you know,
Yeah.
it was also very interesting in the process in talking about our different narratives. Because even though, like, Kat is from DC, you know, so then even though, you know, she's African American, you know, her ancestors, like, Cherokee and Native American. So, you know, so she, you know, so she has her own experience. Camille's from Queens, so she has another experience. You know, I'm from Jersey, and yes, I'm Latina, but, you know, so it's like we all
Mhm.
have different experience but also the same language, right? So and that was what's so beautiful about it. You know, it's like
That's
when,
right.
you know, African people that were, you know, that were enslaved and, you know, was migrated to Cuba, migrated to Brazil, migrated to Jamaica, migrated to all these different Caribbean islands and Latin American islands. It's like they brought, you know, everything that was done in Africa. Also, and the tradition. So,
Their
and that they kept
tradition.
alive. So therefore, it's like I speak to Fauna, who's from Trinidad, and her experience is very similar to mine. You know what I mean? And it goes back to the motherland and to the African kings
Hmm.
and queens that brought it. So it's just so beautiful that wherever we are, we share that same
Yeah.
language. You know, and then you from the West, you know what I mean? And then you're bringing
Yeah.
this, like, this beautiful language as well. So I think that
Hmm.
that's the power and the beauty of what, like, Camille brings to the
Hmm.
work. There's also the power and beauty of our ancestors that is instilled in us, that, you know, is circulating in the work. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that, you know, that's one of the beauties of, you know, even with Black Girl Linguistic Play, in sharing those different stories and going back to, like, you know, sharing the different joy and love, and, you know, and then also the vulnerability, and then what does that feel like, you know, and then also what we went through with even our
Yes.
bodies, you know, and
Yeah.
we go through so many different things with our bodies, and how sometimes is, again, going back to, like, you know, how it's perceived in the media as young girls, like, you're seen as, like, you know, sexualized and over sexualized, right, as Black and brown bodies. So, and it's like debating within those things, and
Yeah.
then talking about how it made us feel, but then also talking about how the beauty of our Black bodies, right? So it's kind of like, you know, I always say that, like, her work is very healing for me, you know, because I get to talk about these things, how I felt, and then how do I feel
Yeah.
now, how can I overcome that feeling from the
Hmm.
past, and those different triggers.
Yeah. And yeah. And then from all of this, right? From all this discussion, all this interpersonal conversation,
Right.
comes gestures, right? You know, and I feel like that's the framework. That's how, like, if you're writing a paper, it's kind of like, we're transitioning. How do we, from our discussion now, how do we put it on its feet? Like, from that feeling, now how do we interpret it through a gesture, a movement, rhythms, all of that. So, rhythms, gestures, um, cultural code signifiers, all of that is very prevalent in the creative process that will be
Right.
transformed into the artistic work. And I think that's the beauty of it. Like, we've had all this conversation, so it's like, and it gets so, as performers, it gets so much, it's like you have to move. So what is that thing, you know what I mean, that makes you have to speak even louder? What does your body do that makes you be able to, like, land it? And that's always a fun part of the process, is that when we're all finding those rhythms and gestures and cultural codes together, connecting with each other to find even new movement, new ideas. That's also it, a highlight of the process. And sometimes it can be very tedious, and sometimes it could be crazy fun. We're not going to sit here and say that it's all
Right.
fun. It's not. It's hard work, and it's not just hard work physically. It's hard work because of
Right.
the demand inside of you.
Right.
It's hard work to
Yes.
be transparent. Period. It's hard work to be authentic. That does not come easy, because constantly, doesn't matter who you are, white, black, brown, yellow, green, the world doesn't always allow
Right.
you or want you to be authentic. It's
Right.
always telling
Exactly.
you to be something else. So that it is hard work to stand firmly and be authentic and be transparent. So,
Right.
and that is what's asked
Right.
of
And I
us
think that
in
right
the creative
now, we're
process.
going through another
Yeah.
elevation of that, right? I think that, we're going through what I call two and three pandemics,
Mhm.
and, what I talked about yesterday, like spiritual warfares as well.
Mhm.
And, we are facing ourselves. So it's like we have to come into,
Yeah.
at some point,
Hmm.
come to this like radical, honesty and truth, within ourselves as like things that like we, just kind of like stripping down, and it's very interesting when when we come back to the space where we can, express all together. It's going to be very interesting how everyone is putting and instilling their radical truth into the space. So yeah.
What do what do you think that's going to look like? Yeah, let's talk about it. What do you think that's going to look like? Be like being able to perform again, perform these works, whether it be Ink or Black Girl, and of course it's like it's always about taking your experience and bringing it to the work. Like that goes for the creative process, but of course, absolutely, it has to go for the performative aspect. So like with all that's going on, being quarantined, going through this pandemic, you know, race well, we've been dealing with racial injustice and inequality forever. Like this isn't new, but just that the world has awakened and now sees it in ways that they have never seen it. Like what does that do to you, to your mind? You know what I mean? Like what story, do
Um,
you want to tell through that?
yeah,
I
I
just
think
think
that
it's
I'm honestly I'm telling it every day when I wake up, I'm right
mm-hmm,
now I'm going through the process of there's so many different emotions that are coming into my space every single day. Um and there's a lot of meditation, there's a lot of like
yeah.
listening, and listening to my ancestors and to the spirits to tell me what it is and the direction that I need to. And I think that that's basically what it is. It's like we went from going, it's like that hustle New York, style of just, and now we're at a place of like everything is just stopped. It just stopped, right? And I think that we're able to feel, we're able to
Stop.
think,
Yeah.
and I think that that's basically the approach that I want to go. It's like writing every single day, and that's basically what I've been doing, just like writing and meditating anything that
Mm.
I'm feeling inside and really having taking that moment. Um and also thinking about my ancestors and the people that have before me that have already planted that seed, right? I think there's like all these, like my mom and I see also
Mm.
neighbors that are like planting and growing. It's like harvest time right now, right? Um so I think that that's what it is. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there's this new seed that is now vibrating inside all of us, and we're going
That's
through
right.
this mourning phase, and then from the mourning phase to the liberation phase to then the joy phase, but we have to go through all of that different process. So all that to say is that while doing
That's right.
Black Girl or Ink or even Tolerance is like really going back to thinking about all these people that have been forgotten, and like really thinking about like all of the, not only the
Hmm.
struggles, but really all of the things, all of the beautiful things that they have like planted, so it's like I'm dancing for them, you know um
Hmm.
I, because they are living in me.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we forget about all of our ancestors and pioneers and people of color, um, that have like just brought so much beauty into the space, rhythm, traditions, so many. And I think that that's basically what it is. It's
Yeah.
like how would that person do it now in my body, you know? So
Yeah. Uh, that's great. I I agree. And I got chills because when I think of the next time I'm able to be on a stage and perform these works, you know what I mean? I like Camille's works because I always get to tell my Black narrative. I always get to acknowledge my Black history, you know? Um, and I feel very empowered to do that. And it's always what we want as artists is when we perform that we escape, that it is not us, you know what I mean? That it is this spirit, this energy that is that has captured us and that is able to tell and move our bodies in ways that we
Right.
can't naturally do. And I have experienced it. I call it the dance Holy Ghost. But I'm sure that when I'm able to be back on stage and perform, for whether it's an audience or not, even when rehearsal, I always find such beauty in just my rehearsal space because I know I'm supported, to go there. Like you go there in rehearsal, so that way when it's time to perform, you go even further. And I just feel like dance is my language, and I'm able to speak even more vibrant when I move. And I cannot wait because I feel like I've been suffocated a little bit. You know what I mean? So much wants to speak even more. Even though I'm writing and speaking, it's like that idea to move, not just. And when I say move, I
Mm.
also mean move with my community because that also gives this other elevation. You know, it's like this mega mind, this mega body, and I can't wait to experience that again with you all because it's going to be a knockout. It's just, I'm sure we're gonna like all be in tears afterwards because it's healing. I can't, I guess I can't wait to get on stage. I can't wait to dance. I can't wait to move again because I need to heal. I think that's it. I'm about to
Mm.
cry, but I think that's it. I just need to heal. I do.
Mm.
It's tough out here. It's
Mm.
really, really tough out here, you know? Um, and I want to tell the world that
Mm.
my Black body
Mm.
and my Black ancestors, we are important. We are
Mm.
important. We are
Mhm.
important. And yeah, so
Exactly.
this is what the work does
Exactly.
to
And
us.
it only takes conversations and
Yeah.
more conversations, in order for us to get to that, like, healing and transformation and transition. But I'm also very much
Yeah.
uh, grateful, to have women like you and women like Camille and, just to have these different conversations, to have this outlet, to have a space where we can just talk like what we're doing right now. It's like, it's like this is basically what we have, and that,
Yeah.
and this is what we
Because this
do.
is what we do. This
Right,
is the creative
exactly.
process.
And that's basically what it is that, like,
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
we can't forget about our ancestors, and talking about earlier, it's like, it's like, how would Josephine Baker right now, do the work, and Rosa Parks, like, what would they say now,
Mm.
and I think that they're watching, they're being
Mm.
with us, and and we're definitely going to come out strong, and because we always do. Right,
Oh,
right.
resilience, fortitude, power, always, always. Yeah.
I know.
Oh, well, I
I
love you,
love you
B. This was
too.
great.
I love you too. And by the way, for everybody that's watching,
XXX.
just know that, like,
I
this is
love
what we do.
you.
This is what we do all the time in rehearsal. Like, this is the process. You know what I mean? Like, this conversation is the process. So it's like you guys are kind of like
Yeah.
literally just looking into what we do in the class, in the studio. I mean,
This
yeah,
this is what we do in the studio. Like we do this and then sometimes we'll move and then
right,
sometimes we'll be like, all right, see you tomorrow. And but that's important. It's not always about,
right,
the movement's going to be there. You have to do the work before the movement so that way once you stand on
right,
your feet, the movement is ready.
exactly,
The movement is the afterthought. The brain and the heart and the spirit,
exactly.
that's first, you know.
I love you
Yeah.
too.
Well, I love you, B.
Mwah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for hanging out with us as we do Mirror Talk. You actually got a chance to kind of sit through a creative process because
Yep,
this is what we
that's
would have
right.
done.
Right.
So thank you for allowing us to share and being here. And, you know, we're doing more, social distancing classes and talks. So just stay tuned to, at Camille A. Brown, IG Live. It's
Yes.
always something good on here.
Bye.
All
Okay.
right.
Bye bye.
Well, I'll talk to you later.